All right, everybody, we are live with Practical Chrome 33. That's right. Today is Tuesday, August 5th, 2014, and this episode of Practical Chrome is brought to you by the Effective Group. Do you need a fantastic website that not only looks great on mobiles and tablets, but also gets you selling online? Then Effective Group is the company for you. To find out more about Effective Group, view their portfolio, and read about their successes, visit effective-group.com. And also by Coinbase. Coinbase is an international digital wallet that allows you to securely buy, use, and accept Bitcoin currency. Coinbase is Bitcoin safe and easy. Visit them today through our referral link to help the show. Visit coinbase.practicalchrome.com. Oh, I didn't put that. All right. So, everyone, welcome to Practical Chrome. Of course, my name is John Oliphant, and you've reached the show all about things Chrome. Right, so you've got the Chrome browser, the Chromecast. You have Chrome on it. You can catch it here. We've got everything that is everything to know about Chrome. Of course, we're also broadcast on YouTube live every Tuesday night at 10:10. That's right. And of course, we do that every week. And I do have my sounds this week, which is awesome. I'd like to say hello to first my co-host Craig Tumbleson. How you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing great, John. How about you?
I am excellent. And Mr. Welvis, how are you, sir?
Fantastic.
That's right. And we actually, today, we have a special guest, Ara Wagoner. Is it Wagoner?
Yeah, it's Wagoner.
Wagoner? Cool. Now, Ara is a new hire with Android Central. If you've heard of Android Central, they are a very popular news blog, I would say, about everything cool when it comes to mobile, Android, and even Chromebooks. They do a lot of Chromebook stuff as well. So thanks for joining us today. Now,
My pleasure.
This episode is about the idea of Chrome OS, right? So, you know, we've got so many operating systems out there now, you know, and everyone's very, very used to what they've got. You know, they become their best friends. You got the Windows. You got, back in the day, you had DOS. Although not many people remember that. Mac OS all the way up to OS X, and people have come to know that very well, right? They've gotten workflows that they've got patterns built with them, and they enjoy it, even if they have some headaches. But so why Chrome OS, right? What is the reason? Do we need another OS? A different kind of OS? We're going to tackle this subject with Ara, me, James, and Craig, and we're going to kind of take a look at that. Now, as many people know, this show is broadcast from Chromebooks, right? So, which is awesome. And I usually broadcast from my studio, which is basically a storeroom in my basement. But this week I'm in a hotel. This happened a couple months back as well in some training. But I'm able to broadcast the show, record the show, thanks to Google Hangouts and my Chromebook. And so I'm just really, really happy to be here. You know, when it comes to what, can you guess? This is a coffee maker. Look how small it is. It's like the size of like an iron. I love hotels. Seriously, it's a Holiday Inn Express. It's the best. I've got my setup going. I got the 2 computers. I've got everything going on. I just made a cup of coffee with that thing. See, look at that. Look at that itty bitty little cup of coffee. See?
It's like a cheap little Keurig that doesn't cost $5 a cup.
It's exactly those little wafers. It's good. It's a beautiful thing. By the way, what is in creamer? Because there's actually no milk in it whatsoever. The powdered creamer. That's what is that? I don't know.
I don't know, but it's what they use to make the dragon spit fire at Fantasmic.
It does say keep away from flame. So I did wonder about that. All right, so anyway, that's my funness. So you know, being here at a Holiday Inn is kind of exciting to be able to do the show, get everything all together, and so there's that. So I welcome everyone to the show. Of course, now before we get into the news, and Ara's going to join us for the news, we're just going to do some talking points, talk about some of the news that came out this week. There was some big news, but first we do want to thank our first sponsor this evening, and that is the Effective Group, because they have been awesome with us. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention was I've been playing a lot of this O game. Anybody down? Any Lit viewers down? It's an awesome game online. So I've been playing it a lot. Just thought I'd mention that because I love that game. So I'm doing a lot of that while away from home. It's terrible. So, okay. So the Effective Group, sponsor the show. Been a sponsor for quite some time. We really appreciate having them. And so what is the Effective Group? The Effective Group is a great company that's been around for about 15 years, established 15 years ago in the UK. And what they're doing is they're getting their customers online. So if you want to get either your business or yourself online, this is one of those companies that's going to help you in a manner where they get with you one-on-one, and they find out what your requirements are for what you're trying to do, right? It's explained in plain English. There's no tricky jargon. It's just straightforward advice and guidance regarding getting yourself online, whether it comes to a website, being able to be found on the web with Google, Yahoo, all the other search engines out there. And they're going to provide you with that one single contact, regular contact, that's going to be able to get you online with the website building, with the SEO management, all the way down the line. And they're going to work with you on that hand in hand. So it's a really great company that will get you from not being online to being in front of literally hundreds of thousands of people in your local area, or globally, depending on what you need. So definitely check them out. The website is effective-group.com, and when you go there, down at the bottom they have their kind of portfolio, and you can check out some of their great responsive design websites that they've built, and a lot of their customers have spoken out of how great it's been working with them, and how much revenue they've generated, and how much they've doubled the amount of traffic that they get. So definitely check that out. Again, it's effective-group.com. And of course, we thank them again for sponsoring the show. They've been really fantastic with us. All right. So first up in the news, everybody, is and we were actually talking about this off air a minute ago. J.R. Raphael, writing for Computer World, he got his hands on a Core i3 Acer C720 variant. So this is right now I'm on the C720. I'm not sure. I think James, you're actually power washing your C720p. Craig, you have a C720p as well. So basically, it's the same form factor, but with 4 gigs of RAM if you want it for 380, or for 350 you get the 2 gig, and then an i3, an Intel i3 chip. And what JR was able to do is put them side by side, do a really good side-by-side comparison to tell us how well the i3 is going to do for you on a Chromebook. Is it going to be that much better? Is it going to be, is it going to be amazing, right? Is it going to be like, oh, why didn't I have an i3 all the whole time? So I brought this article, and I've read it all the way through. I'm not gonna spill the beans right this second. But first, I'd like to go to Ara. Now I know that you've only had a chance to kind of play with Chromebooks here and there. What are your thoughts on the fact that these more powerful chips are coming? I mean, is it something that, like, you're as a techno person, are you looking at this as, this is what I want?
Well, bigger specs always make me happier, usually. Although I shouldn't say that. I kind of railed against that in Android Central. But yeah, it makes me happier that we're getting more powerful processing, because I don't know about y'all, but when I'm in Chrome, if I'm on DeviantArt, I can have 50, 70 tabs going at a time, because I will just click every image into a new tab while I'm going down the list and then go through them all. And when you're on a Chromebook, if you start loading that many tabs, it starts really slowing down. So yeah, getting more powerful processors means I can have more tabs open and potentially get more done. So yeah, powerful processors are a good idea, but at the same time, we kind of lose a little bit of the battery life when we get those, don't we?
No, you do. And I'm not going to spoil it. Everyone, first of all, should read the article, but because he actually does a great job. He always does. But Craig, have you had a chance to read? I know that you're sitting there with your great Haswell-based C720p, and I know that you're like me. You're in love with your C720. So, and have you read the article? You can nod. It's fine. Have you read it? Did you read it? Did you?
Yeah, of course I read it, John. I come prepared.
That's right. So I'll let you spill the beans.
Sure. Okay. JR, like you said, does a fantastic job on this article. He really does compare them side by side. The most stunning thing for me was that the battery life is actually about the same for both devices at 8.5 hours in real-world usage. That's surprising because, like Ara, I would have assumed that with a more powerful chip, the battery life dropped. But maybe they threw in a bigger battery. I don't know if they made any changes there. But the other thing he definitely notes is that scrolling smoothness, very much improved, and opening tabs and closing tabs moves a lot quicker as well, which, like Ara, I get fed up with sometimes too. My device right now, my standard Acer C720p, performs really well. Google Plus slows down a little bit. Google Docs slows down a little bit if I have 10, 20 tabs open. But for most of my standard work, whether it's digging through Chromium bug reports or whatever, it handles it just fine. The i3 for me, what the i3 means to me is more native apps. The ability to run native apps better and be able to run multiple of them at once. Tabs are tabs. You can open up any laptop, fire up a couple tabs. The more tabs you open, the slower it'll get. That's pretty standard. But when it comes to the native apps, I'm really kind of excited to see where we're going, especially with bigger chips kind of leading the way. So all in all, for $380 for the 4 gig version, I could not recommend this model enough. I love the chassis that it's built on, and the bigger chip and extra RAM makes all the difference in the world.
Mr. Welbus, what are your thoughts on someone upgrading your C720 with a Mac Daddy chip compared to the the Celeron Bay Trails that we've been seeing?
I mean, if somebody wants to do that for me for free, I'd be all about it. But at this point, with what Chrome OS can do, I feel like putting an i3 in my Chromebook would be more future-proofing it than it would be improving my current workflow. I'm happy to see another Chromebook with 4 gigabytes of RAM in it. That's nice. My Acer does get a little slow when I get up to 40 or so tabs. I'm the guy that usually has so many tabs that you can't see the favicon anymore. So I'm more concerned about that, I think. But in terms of future-proofing it, I really hope that seeing these more powerful Chromebooks will encourage the developers everywhere to really push the limits of Chrome OS and see what we can do. See if we can get, like you said, Photoshop. I mean, Pixlr is great, but it's not Photoshop. It's not Illustrator. It'd be kind of cool if we could see some of these kind of things come to Chrome OS in the future, and I think you're definitely going to need to see better hardware than what we're looking at right now.
I'm with you, and I think that goes along the lines with Craig's comment about the native apps. And Craig, real quick, just to when you say native apps, are you talking about the nasal apps, or are you talking about actual HTML5 apps? Do you want more power for those, or are you looking for more of a nasal versus the native client versus the
Well, John, I think it's important for both, to be honest, whether they're standard HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript, or versus the new native client apps that are constantly expanding. I think more power is better across the board. JavaScript can take some power, let's be honest. And if you're going to build a web app entirely in JavaScript, you're going to need a chip that can kind of keep up. So I think across the board, the better the chip, the better.
I agree. All right, let's hop into the next one. So, 64-bit, finally coming. So it was released on the Chrome release blog that the 64-bit beta channel for Windows and then also Mac was also released later on, and so basically 64-bit is coming. Now I've got in the link of the show notes, I've got the release from the blog itself, and then also the Joey over at OMG Chrome, he actually did a great write-up describing like what he's seeing the differences, the speed differences, things like that. Give us the numbers. Definitely check out that article if you can. Is this a good thing? Is it really going to be that much better? Craig, I'll actually start with you on this one because I know that you're down with the technical details of the 64-bitness.
Well, John, 64-bit is usually good, and I say usually only because under certain conditions you can optimize out the backside and get 32-bit to be a little bit quicker out of very few select tasks. But overall, 64-bit's better. It's more future-proofing than anything else at the moment. As for how 64-bit plays into the Chrome OS landscape, that's hotly debated at the moment. It really is, and I say that because the support forum constantly deals with these questions, and the answer we really have at the moment is we're not sure. Some of the Chrome OS images that ship with devices that ship with 4 gigs of RAM or more do use 64 images, but some Chrome OS devices get 32-bit images. It's kind of optimized on a per-device level. It's a little bit confusing. I understand the core differences between the two, but when it comes to the optimizations and what the Chrome team is really doing behind the scenes, I'm not really sure I'm qualified to speak to that, but it's future-proofing.
There you go. I would totally agree with that. I think that's, Joey talks about some of the technical pieces that I kind of get. Some of the fact that with the 64-bit, you're going to be able to use some of the newer security features of some of the operating systems that the browser's laying on top of, whether that be Chrome OS or Windows, because it can see a larger, I think it's memory. Of course, I can't remember, block, I think it is. So that's definitely pretty cool. So that was just one of the little pieces of news I just wanted to share. And then the next one up is Quanta. Quanta? Anybody? Quanta's a computer manufacturer. This was actually released by some dude named Craig Tumbleson. Figured it out and released the news. So, all right, I'm going to send this to you first. Here's another manufacturer. Right. Last week we talked about Hexa. Here we've got Quanta. Do you think this is really Chrome OS coming out of the gate as being like, yeah, manufacturers now are like, yes, I'm going to design these because we're hitting the education sector, we're hitting the consumer market. We've talked about kiosks, things like that. Are you seeing a lot? Are you seeing it as like a big push out there? Or are you kind of like, well, it's a normal cycle. It's just what's coming out.
Well, I'm always happy when we're getting more OEMs because that means we're getting more choice. But I don't know. I hadn't really seen this as much today, but I don't know. It's interesting at the very least. But I'm not sure until we see like more. Most of the big manufacturers, at least here in the States, are starting to climb on because we've got a really good one from Dell. We've got HP's been on board like forever. And then we have Acer and Samsung, and those have been the big ones here for a while. I mean, we're never going to get an Apple Chromebook, so there's not a whole lot of other major PC makers here left in the U.S. that are not getting on board. Because, I mean, they made that big list earlier in the year and added like 6 or 8 manufacturers on that list.
Exactly. It's a big push. I'm really excited about it. Now, James, I'm not going to go to Craig because he's the one that spilled the beans about it. That's right. That's right. I will note one thing. This is the same manufacturer that did the laptops, the one laptop per child. So that's to me that's one of those groundbreaking pieces of it. Because if you knew about that and you read up on that and like you kind of followed it when it first started, they were doing some of the things that Chrome OS has been trying to do, where they try to take the Linux OS and our distribution and really kind of shave it down, get it inside, things like that. So I think that and then they wanted to bring the hardware piece into that, where they would try and build the system in an inexpensive way, but that would also be able to get a laptop to every child for like I think it was under like $200 at the time, or was it $100?
It was under $150. I remember that much. But yeah, no, I remember that push. So that was way back when I was still listening to Twit every week when I was in high school, I think. Oh, God. That dates me, doesn't it?
Oh, trust me. Don't worry about it. James, here we have another kind of out of left field manufacturer, but it's super fantastic.
It is fantastic. it's kind of fun to see not just the big companies, the really big companies who can maybe afford to take a risk, go ahead and make this weird Chrome OS laptop. It's kind of fun to see these other companies like Hexa and Quanta who, I'll be honest, I've never heard of them until they released a Chromebook. But I'm not the guy who's, super in the know with all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool to see them coming out with these things, especially with their work with the one laptop per child. I mean, what better way to get a laptop in the hands of a whole bunch of kids? People We're already doing that in schools everywhere. So I think it's kind of a really good fit for a company like Quanta to manufacture a Chromebook. It makes me wonder if these are going to be some kind of education only, or if they're going to be consumer, or both. But I really just hope that it has 4 gigs of RAM, John. That's all I care about.
Isn't that out of left field, though?
What do you mean by out of left field?
Well, you said it was another out of left field that they're making a Chromebook, but if they were one laptop per child, then they were trying to make cheap quality devices that they could get out to students in educational sector. Chromebook was all about, we want to be able to bring Chrome and the internet to people in a cheap way that actually worked. So it would be a logical step for them to make a Chromebook, wouldn't it?
I'm actually going to feed that to Craig. I'll give him the opportunity to talk about his, because I know that he's done actually a lot of research on this. He's the one that released the information because he found it, but he's also done a lot of the digging.
Thanks for that wonderful introduction, John. To quickly clarify a point that James made, Quanta is not a small OEM.
No.
They are the largest manufacturer of notebooks in the world, and they're based out of Taiwan. So they're a very, very large corporation that can afford to take some risks. There's also a rumor that they may have been the company that made the original CR48 Chromebook, the original Chromebook, because it wasn't branded or labeled. But that is just a rumor. It would make sense, as Ara said, it's a logical step. If they were making one laptop per child, and Google said, hey, we've got this crazy idea, would you make us a test model? That may have been the CR48. And then Quanta may have stepped back and kind of looked at how everything was going, and then went from there and decided, we're ready. We're going to go ahead and put this out with our name on it. According to the code, this is education only at the moment. That does not mean that we won't see a consumer model. It does not mean that we won't see another model based off this one. All it means is that right now it's education only. So honestly, I consider this a gigantic win, because when you have a company this large willing to put their name on it, to me that's just nice. It's rewarding.
Yeah, I was going to say, the fact that they're throwing a name on it when, like James said, I think it's important that, from our perspective here in the States, it's a manufacturer that we've never even heard of. So for Craig to say, well, no, really, they're actually one of the largest manufacturers there is, but they're actually sticking their name on it. So this is going to be one that is education, so that means that hundreds, maybe even hundreds of thousands of models are going to go out the door and be used every day by kids. It's one that you're going to want to stick your name on, something that it's going to be able to last. So I think this is a huge win, and a very, very good thing for the Chrome OS ecosystem to get another model out there. Now the next thing up, I want to give a little Chromecast love. We actually have another Chromecast love a little bit later in the login section, but this is I found this out. We act 10% of our viewers and listeners, the UK. So shout out to the UK. The Vodafone company, the cellular company, they are actually selling Chromecast at a £5 discount. Is that pound? I can't see. Is that the pound symbol? So they're selling it at £5. See, that is terrible. I should know this because £5 sounds like way too much. But it's 30, regularly 30, and now it's going to be 25 if you have to get the $5 discount. I'm going to find out about that. I'll correct it next week. I promise. So really interesting that it's another company that's has phone plans, and they're going to, like last week we talked about a phone company that's actually giving it away as part of a sale. I think it was a Moto X, then you get a free Chromecast. Awesome. And here we have $5 off, or £5. Something, and I'm so sorry. It's 5 something off. Gosh, I hope it's pounds. Anyway, so that's just an interesting tidbit. I know that we all have Chromecast. Ara, do you have a Chromecast?
What do you think that is?
I didn't even see that. See, look at that. She's trying to do a little product placement, and I totally missed it. so that's really awesome. I think the Chromecast is also getting a lot of love out there, and that's awesome. So, good stuff. I should have. Why did I know that Ara owned a Chromecast? Anyway, so that's
I
it.
broke every speed limit known to man in order to get one when it first came out. I literally called every Best Buy in Austin, and when I found one that had it, I drove like a bat out of hell down there to the to the Best Buy Gateway, and I got literally the last one that they had. I was so proud of myself.
I waited weeks for it to be delivered and then found out that Best Buy had stacks of them falling off the shelves.
Oh, yeah, no, by the time that I should have just pulled the trigger the moment I saw it at I/O, because I was watching it live and I was like, Chromecast, and I was like, that's amazing, I want it. Because, like, my parents had a Blu-ray player with the smart apps installed and whatnot, but those were so tedious. Like, I would try and find an episode. If I was trying to find a particular episode of Top Gear, it could take me 10 minutes using that app, because you had to go into each individual season, each individual episode in order to get a synopsis for it. So it was just minutes and minutes of click, nope, back, click, nope, back.
I was late to the ship because I had a terrible internet connection. Apparently, I still do. And then my router went dead. It was a long story. But now I'm got the Chrome. I got the Doodlecast. I got a couple other apps. I bought some shows for the girls. It's been excellent. So we definitely have some Chromecast love on this show. That's for darn sure. So
I use mine every day, literally. I don't even have my cable hooked up right now. It's just the Chromecast. The DVD player's hooked up because the internet went out when I came back on Tuesday. Wait, last Thursday. Never mind.
I'm right there with you. We had the cable one out for quite a while, and we used nothing but that for quite some time as well. So, all right. So now it's time for the main section. Before we talk about the main section, we're gonna talk about our other sponsor, which is Coinbase.com. Okay, we're gonna want to thank them for being a sponsor of the show. So Coinbase, what's Coinbase? What is Coinbase? Coinbase is Bitcoin safe and easy. Did you know that more and more companies are accepting Bitcoin? Has someone offered you Bitcoin in exchange for goods or services? With Bitcoin's popularity growing more and more, having a well-known source to purchase, sell, and keep your Bitcoin is super important. Coinbase can be your easy and worry-free source for Bitcoin and Bitcoin transactions. Coinbase allows you to send Bitcoin to others, buy new Bitcoins in U.S. dollars, and also cash out Bitcoin in U.S. dollars. If you're concerned about getting into Bitcoin as a currency, then Coinbase is literally your best first step. With some of the strongest security, stronger than most banks, Coinbase makes using Bitcoin incredibly safe. Now, if you visit our referral link, right, if you go to coinbase.practicalchrome.com, you're going to get yourself 5 Bitcoin, right? You're also going to, right there, boom, 5 Bitcoin. All on you right now. You have to. There's some prerequisites, but if you use our referral link, you're definitely going to get 5 Bitcoin, and then also you're going to support the show, and that's going to be awesome because we like support. We're trying to get James and I are trying to get new mics. We really are. We just don't. I did have someone say that James actually sounds the best on the show, even though Craig got this awesome new mic. But so I'm still. Although, how would I travel with a big mic? I don't know how that would work. Anyway, so definitely support the show. Check out bitcoin.practicalchrome.com or coinbase.practicalchrome.com today to support the show. And also on our page, if you look at our page, you'll actually see, I'm going to bring it up in a second, when you go to our page, you'll actually see there's a little Bitcoin button right there. And when you click that, you can actually send us some Bitcoin again just to support the show. And that's going to go towards some much needed new equipment. And we really appreciate everyone supporting the show. So, awesome sauce. Thanks so much for Coinbase. All right. So, the idea of Chrome OS. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And what the kind of my finer points of this were wrapped around the fact that, you've heard the term like robust or, more feature-rich or standard operating system is one of the terms out there I've heard in regard to, who's using what and like what tools that you use on those machines when it comes to your personal computer. And then here comes Chrome OS, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to read some information that's available online. I'll have links in the show notes. One was the blog post that actually announced the launch of Chrome OS out of a closed source into an open source project, 100% open source. And so I'm just going to read out these quotes real quick. So again, this was from a blog post. Chrome OS, a fundamentally different model of computing. Okay, it's all about the web. All apps are web apps. The entire experience takes place within the browser, and there are no conventional desktop applications. This means users do not have to deal with installing, managing, and updating programs. Because all apps live within the browser, there are significant benefits to security. Unlike traditional operating systems, Chrome OS doesn't trust the applications you run. Each app is contained within a security sandbox, making it harder for malware and viruses to infect your computer. Furthermore, Chrome OS barely trusts itself. Every time you restart your computer, the operating system verifies the integrity of its code. If your system has been compromised, it is designed to fix itself with a reboot. All right, so that's just a little bit of it, and then it goes on. It's obsessed with speed. We are taking out every unnecessary process, optimizing many operations, and running everything possible in parallel. This means you can go from turning on the computer to surfing the web in a few seconds. Our obsession with speed goes all the way down to the metal. We are specifying reference hardware components to create the fastest experience for Google Chrome OS. A couple more quotes, trust me. Because this is a big one here. We are excited to work with the open source community. We have benefited hugely from projects like GNU, the Linux kernel, Moblin, Ubuntu, WebKit, and many more. We will be contributing our code upstream and engaging closely with these and other open source efforts. So right there's another piece of it, right? So you've got all those factors that they were trying to do, faster, web-based, everything like that, and then also they're putting this back in the community. Final one is from the actual project site itself. So we talk about open source. The project site has all of the code available to anybody who wants to download it, right? So the project site is for anyone to go look at, and then if you want to get the code, you just have to click a couple links, you can grab the code down. So the quote on that site describing what Chromium is an open source project that aims to build an operating system that provides a fast, simple, and more secure computing experience for people who spend most of their time on the web. Right. That was a lot of reading. And I know that was a little bit too much. But I think what it did was it drilled home the exact words from the developers as to what they're trying to accomplish with this operating system. So now it comes down to why do we use it? And I'm going to start, Ara, I'm going to start with you because right now, like I said before, I've heard you talking about it. You've written a number of G+ articles about it. Well written. You've done your research. You've gone over it, and you're like, you know what? This is the time. So when it comes to a web-based operating system, getting yourself away from the large library-hungry, Windows-based systems. Even, you could even say Linux is a library-hungry system, and of course Mac, of course, is as well. So getting away from this, what are your thoughts on Chrome OS and the future of operating systems when it comes to this, the fact that we all carry around these things every day, and maybe it might be time to make a switch?
Well, most of why I really want people to start making the switch now is because Chromebooks are now getting to be, you can use them more offline. It can actually be your full-time computer now in a more complete sense than it could have been in days past. Like when the Chromebook first came out and you couldn't really do much with it when it was offline, I just kind of laughed. I couldn't really do much with that because I spent so much time traveling back then because I was still in college. And nowadays, even if I don't have internet with me, I now have a pretty little Moto X with tethering on it, so I have internet everywhere anyway. We're more connected now because it's more. If you don't have a data plan, you're considered weird. You might have been 2 or 4 years ago as well, but I didn't have one. So if I didn't have internet, I just learned to do without, and I needed a full, more robust system like this nice old Windows 7 desktop that now takes about 5 minutes for it to boot up and for me to do just about anything. And yeah, with my mother's computer, she's got pretty much this exact same model, but it's just you can feel it aging, and you can feel it it's getting slower, and it's not as useful for her because she doesn't have the administrator credentials on her computer, so she can't update anything herself other than the Windows system itself. So Java doesn't get updated, Flash doesn't get updated, Adobe Reader doesn't get updated. About the only thing that updates itself is the Chrome browser, because it does that on its own, which is why I tried to get her to use that as much as possible. But she wants something that she doesn't have to call and ask about. I want something that she doesn't have to call me and ask about too. Like a lot of people that I know, I have a friend who's in San Antonio. He's planning to get a Chromebox and set it up for his mother and then give it to her to use, just so it's a low maintenance machine. As much as we are in... Go ahead.
Low maintenance is an understatement. We've actually had James actually update his system on air, and he was gone for exactly 45 seconds.
Yeah, see, try that with Windows 8, and that's it. I love Windows 8. Windows 8 breathes brand new life into my desktop. My decade-old desktop boots on Windows 8.1 faster than my 4-year-old laptop.
Well, there you go.
So that's the power of putting a different system on a computer. I'd love to see what Chrome OS would do on this, but at the same time, I just want to get a Chromebook. I just want to get something that I don't have to hassle with.
Exactly. I see now. I totally agree. Now, so when it comes to operating systems, you do have like Windows 8. They're coming back. You know, they're doing their best. They have the engineers just like Google does who work hard every day, and they actually do make really good code. And like you just said, you're able to put Windows 8 on the machine and it ran like a champ. But I think the fundamental question, I think, and something that you pointed out, was that you were able to give it to someone like your mom, and that's where kind of like where I come from. I'd love to give it to my sister. She only has one caveat, and that is Minecraft.
Ooh, right? Yeah.
So
Minecraft might be the most requested Android app for Chromebook at this point, because literally 80% of the people. Well, yeah.
Dude, seriously, just put crouton on it.
I know. Listen.
It takes like 4 minutes.
Not exactly true. We had a crouton challenge last week, and we know how that went. Okay, so it went well, but not so well. But that's beside the point. I'm not. That's part of the problem. You know, we've talked about that. I can't believe James is the one that's like, oh yeah, just put crouton on it. Like I have to rebut that, like the big dog, because I'm like, no, don't do that. I actually, okay, wait. Sidebar. This week I had someone hit the contact link this week. One of the feedback that we had was it was a question saying, for one of my classes I need to use VirtualBox, and I want to be able to use my Chromebook. Is this possible? So, and I wanted to, and this is just a quick sidebar, because as a Linux user, I know that the Chromebook could do this under Crouton, but because 80% of Chromebooks sold have only 2 gigs of RAM, and he wanted to run Windows Server 2008 in the VirtualBox. So, and I know that's going to take at least 400 to 600 gig of RAM, and especially if he's putting a server on there, he's going to put some app on it, so he's going to need even more. So there was a limitation of the hardware, as well as the fact that Chrome OS doesn't have VirtualBox as not even a native app, so it doesn't work. And I wasn't going to, like my sister, I'll point of the story. Crouton's not something that I'm going to recommend to anybody that I don't know very well, or that I know is going to understand what they're doing. Kind of have an understanding of it, because you can just pound away at the instructions, and yeah, you can make something happen, but then you're also stuck in dev mode and a couple other things, and there's you're different. So.
The difference between it being possible and it being advisable is a very wide gap.
That's exactly the point. So Craig, I'm going to throw it to you. So you have these robust OSs, right? The ones with the large libraries, the ones that can run Java, the ones that can build a C application for you if you so choose. And I think, but isn't the ultimate reason why people are still going to buy Windows because just apps are built for it?
I think that's half of the reason. I think there are two reasons why someone buys a Windows computer today instead of a MacBook or a Chromebook. And those two reasons are, number one, they're familiar with the interface, and number two, there's implied compatibility with the software they're already running. So if they're using their iPod syncing to iTunes, they just know that that's going to work. If they're using an old invoicing program from 1998, they know that's going to work somehow. There's that implied sense of compatibility. I think Microsoft shot themselves in the foot when it came to the Windows 8 branding. They tried that interface. Some people took to it. They loved it. A lot of people figured out how to disable it very quickly. But either way, the average consumer walked into the store, and it was very, very different, drastically different. And it hurt their sales because it was different, and that's half the reason someone bought a Windows PC, because they knew how to use it. And if you look at Chrome OS today, coming from Vista to Chrome OS is typically an easier conversion than going from Vista to 8.1. It just is. The interfaces are much more similar. You've got your app tray in the bottom left, your status tray in the bottom right. A lot of it's very similar, and if you're using Chrome already, it's dead on. Literally, it's the same interface. As for compatibility over the long term and the ability to run native apps, the way I explain Chrome OS to people and its benefits is by saying that operating systems like Windows, most Linux distributions, and Mac OS X were built before the internet. In a way, the core platform was built before the internet. So they were designing features and designing security specs that were not aware of the potential risks that the internet would introduce. Things like browser hijacking. So those operating systems are what I consider to be legacy. They're making improvements and they're catching up to what the internet has brought us. Chrome OS was designed with the internet in mind. Everything about it was designed to protect you from the internet. Every app gets its own sandbox. One app cannot communicate with another app directly. So you don't have a need for antivirus software because, again, the Chromebooks were designed knowing that there's a lot of viruses on the internet. So every time they boot up, they do a system check, and if the file system was modified without your permission, they refuse to boot. They won't let you into the system. And that's the best security there can possibly be. And Windows 8 is doing something similar with their file system too. But again, it doesn't. They're playing catch up. And Chrome OS, it was laughable 2, 3, 4 years ago. It really was. I don't think anyone here disagrees with that. But it was an infant at that point in time, and I think we've seen that it's popular because the interface is similar, and the compatibility will get there over time. Native client will allow C+ code to run. Again, it will need to be targeted, but it won't be much more difficult than targeting Mac OS X versus Windows at this point. And of course, with Chrome, it's code once, run everywhere, which is a godsend. And we'll talk about an app later that the developer chose Chrome for that reason. And it's actually an encryption app, so it adds a little bit of credibility to the Chrome OS security aspect as well. But for me, I think Windows 8 is viable for a lot of people. I think compared to Chrome OS, Windows 8 can still get more done for the edge cases where you need Photoshop or Illustrator or something like that. But I think Chrome OS serves about 80% of the population today, and I'm hoping we can get that number up to 90, maybe 95 overall in the next couple years. I don't think we'll ever see Chrome OS replacing data center servers or video rendering servers or anything like that. But we have always had specialized distributions for that purpose anyway. So I'm excited to see what Chrome OS has going on for the future.
I'm with you. Now, listen. I don't like all this Windows 8 love going on right now. So I'm gonna throw it to my man James because of all the Windows 8 love going on. And all right, Craig, I don't mind. Not much on my show called Practical Chrome. The Windows 8 is nice. But Craig, I'd have to argue with you about the 80%. And I'll tell you why. So, consumer market, right? If we're talking just consumer market, that's my caveat, I guess. I think it's way more than 80%. I think that unless you have an app like iTunes that you specifically need, and if you're telling me that 20% of the world uses iTunes, I'm going to cry myself to sleep tonight.
It's 12.
Okay, so look at that. Look at that, 88%. And if the rest of them use Skype and they don't, come on. If that's the only two apps at this point, because you've got everything else online. Okay, I'll stop. James, please, my savior, sir. Yes, the idea of Chrome OS, James.
It's a great idea. You won't find any Windows 8 love coming from this guy who used to take phone calls from people operating Windows 8. It's great in theory, I'm sure. All the Windows 8 nerds love it, or the Windows nerds love it, but the other 99% of the world hates it.
Windows 8 was boo. Windows 8.1 is decent. That's my caveat.
Yeah.
When it automatically booted into the Metro interface, I was kind of like, this is boring, because I'm having to load this interface that I am not going to use for the rest of the time that this computer is active. The first thing I did was hit desktop.
Yeah. So Windows 8 has some performance improvements and whatnot, whatever, but it's vastly different. My favorite thing about Chrome OS is it's never vastly different. Instead of updating Chrome OS every 3 years, like Windows or Mac OS, it updates every 6 weeks. So you don't get these huge changes every 3 years to your operating system. You get little tweaks here and there every 6 weeks, sometimes even more often than 6 weeks. That way, I mean, when I look at my Chrome OS now, I know that it's different from when the Acer C7, the Samsung Series 3 came out. I know it's different. I can't tell you how, because the change has been so gradual over these past few years that it doesn't feel like Windows 8 when some poor old person comes home with their new computer, boots it up, who's been using Windows since '95 and has no idea how to use this computer because it's Windows 8 and it's completely different. You don't have that with Chrome OS. It's just gradual little improvements constantly that take very little time. If you're wondering where I went earlier on the show, during your sidebar, John, I went ahead and updated my HP. It took a little longer than usual this time because I had to wait for the spacebar verification screen to go away. I almost hit spacebar without thinking. I wish it wouldn't say hit spacebar on the screen because I just do what I read. But so I just love Chrome OS. I've been involved with it ever since almost the beginning. I tried to get a CR48. They wouldn't give me one. But I got involved when the Samsung 550 and the Samsung Series 3 were pretty much the only two available, and I watched the Acer C7 get released, and it was interesting at first, and it wasn't much more than that because of the things that Ara mentioned with the offline capability being where it was. It didn't seem like a viable option. It just seemed more interesting. But as the capabilities of Chrome OS got better, it moved from interesting to intriguing to me giving up Windows and not looking back. I have an old Windows laptop in the corner collecting dust that I sometimes have to boot up for random phone rooting shenanigans, but that's about it. Everything else is done on my Chromebooks. My grandfather's 89 years old, and every time I see him, he has some computer question for me, and every time he sees my dad, he has a computer question for him. Pretty much every person he talks to, he's trying to get them to fix his computer. His 89th birthday is coming up, and I'm going to get him an HP Chromebox. I found out that he uses Gmail for email, which surprised me. So there's no reason why he needs an 89-year-old man who plays solitaire and checks his email. He doesn't need this Windows machine that is bulky and has so many updates all the time that take forever. He told me he thinks Bill Gates does that on purpose. He still thinks Bill Gates is the CEO of Microsoft. He's not really wrong. They do give you those updates on purpose. Their intent is not to frustrate you, of course, but with Chrome OS you don't have that. You get a little tiny arrow in the corner, you click on it, it takes about 10 seconds to reboot, and you just updated your OS. Whatever features they have been working on over the past 6 weeks and want to add, you have them. That's it. There's no booting down your computer and then it telling you that it's going to take 4 hours to shut down because it has updates to install. You don't have that. You don't have viruses. You don't have you don't have Java. I mean, you don't have Java. Like, Chrome OS is amazing, and I love it. There's a couple things that I'm waiting for, like MTP support, so I can transfer files to my phone and whatnot. That's coming down the pipes. I think it may be in beta. I don't know if it's that far yet, but it's coming. And just little things like that I'm waiting for. But for the most part, I mean, Chrome OS does everything I need. I'm no graphic designer, but I do maintain a blog, and so I often am editing photos. Pixlr works great for that, and there's a few other apps that people use, but I mainly use Pixlr. The graphics that John creates for this show are almost always created in Pixlr, if not always. This one that he created, I know this week, which is an awesome graphic, let me just tell you, was completed on Pixlr, a free app that works in a browser on pretty much any computer. If it has a browser, you can use it. So, and I think that's the future of the web with web apps. So I think Chromebooks are just the natural, perfect fit for that future. They're not only taking advantage of that, but they're helping to pioneer that technology. So I am all about Chrome OS, and John, for you, Windows 8 blows, man. Just blows.
No, I will. Thank you, James.
That's for you, John.
That's right. So, Ara, you mentioned the 8.1. No, I haven't played with 8.1 yet, and I don't bash Windows because I use Windows every day for work. And it's very stable. I haven't had a blue screen of death on this machine or anything crazy like that. It's a stable workhorse. It does its job. I do development, so I need Windows. It's the platform that I need to have. But there are the caveats, like you mentioned that you had to tweak the box even in 8.1. Is that correct? So you have to get to desktop. Because I've done the 8.0, and my wife has an 8.0 machine, and immediately she just clicks desktop because she's like, no.
Why does she still have an 8.0 machine?
That's a valid question, is what that is.
Well, that's a security question. It's going to stop getting updates after a certain point.
Well,
7 years?
No, it's going to stop getting updates in like a month.
She runs an app that she needs for her business that's maintained by one person, and I think that their version she hasn't said it's verified for 8.1 yet. So I'm not. If we do update it, it would be
and it
after.
Doesn't work.
Right. And then we'd be totally hosed. So there's that part. So that's why we're not doing that. But here you were jumping right into an 8.0, 8.1 machine, and you were like, no, I'm gonna go right back. Well, someone might not be able to do that right away, and when they first get it, like James mentioned with his granddad, I mean, it's one of those things where it does become difficult. So I don't mean to argue those points. I'm just saying that's kind of one of those things where I think Craig had mentioned the difference in when you walked up, and then James mentions that Chrome OS literally makes iterative rolling updates, right? Mm-hmm. Like every 4 to 6 weeks, it's almost 4. They say 6, I think, but it's 4. It's literally 4. And they're just these small little pieces, and then they also give you the beta. I mean, it literally is a different way of computing. And I think that's one of the idea of Chrome OS is fast, light, like Craig said, built specifically for the web. Like networking is like number 2 on the list, right? Of like things that it needs to do, because that's what it was built for, and that's what the world that we live in. We're talking about the 88%. That's what I'm going to use from now on, by the way, because I'm not even going to consider the Skype people. It's just the 12% that use iTunes. Everybody else literally just uses the web, except for if your job is dependent on Windows, whether that whether that be whatever you're doing, it can also be licensing, right? I mean, like if you have AutoCAD and you've purchased it, you've paid a lot of money for it, and you bought the Windows version, you're going to stick with Windows until that license runs out. So you're not going to go that way. So I think that's why it's the new version. It's what the world needs. That's right. I'm going to be all like gushy about it, and say that I think it's what the world needs. That's my stance. That's my stance. so
I agree.
I feel really bad when you said it's what the world needs, and I went, but it's not the one it wants right now, because I went Dark Knight on it. But
the world doesn't know what it wants.
That's the point. Yeah, no. We're an instant gratification society right now. We're also a very no effort. We just want things to work. That is literally what my friends who have iPhones tell me. By the way, the 88%, the 12%, that's only the people who use iPhones. That's who I consider the true iTunes users, because everybody that uses iTunes but only has like an iPod, or they just use it for music and for the web store and for the iTunes store, they could easily migrate.
That's true, or they're Mac users. So.
That's true, but the Mac adoption rate is lower than that.
Well, what's interesting though, recently on an episode of a show, again, I listened to the show called Linux Action Show.
Mm-hmm.
They did this whole thing, and they were talking about they went to a convention for Linux. Like 99% of the machines were Macs. Had the thing, and everybody had an iPhone. And they were like, "What's going on here?" And they were kind of speculated as to why. But Macs are definitely popular, and they're also being jumped on because of the fact that Windows did change so much, and you don't want to get on the Windows boat again, and you're trying to jump off, and maybe the best thing to do is to get a Mac if you need that much of a system. But
also, when people are buying into the Apple ecosystem, they're also buying into the fact that there's a store that they can go to when things break, and it will fix it for them. And I have a friend who, if Chromebooks had been as useful today if they had been as useful today 2-3 years ago, I would have gone out and bought her a Chromebook to get her away from her Mac, because she just kept breaking it. And she didn't need to spend $700-800 on a Mac when she could barely make rent. But she did it because she wanted a computer that just worked.
That's true. And they mentioned that in the podcast, the Linux Action Show, the last episode. They mentioned the fact, might have been unplugged, but anyway, the one host, I think his wife had a Mac, and if it broke, she just walked into the store and they fixed it, and then they handed it back to her within a couple of days. Bob's your uncle, it's fixed, right? All done. And that's one of the reasons why they're so expensive. Not just the quality hardware, but the fact that you get this.
You're buying into a support system.
Exactly. So anyway, I think I think we've wrapped it up. What do you think, Craig? Are you good?
I'm good. I think we covered all the core stuff.
That's right. James, we good?
Yeah, I forgot to mention iTunes blows as well. I just want to go on record as having
Yes,
said that.
I will 100% agree with that. It sucks. I refuse to boot it up now unless I absolutely have to. I have $200 worth of video in the iTunes store I will never watch again because I hate opening the app. It is so poorly optimized on Windows.
I had to write a rhetorical, some kind of paper in composition where I had to pretend that I liked Apple computers, and I was trying to convince people to buy them. And one of the things I was going to do...
Oh, rhetorical argument.
Was talk about how... A rhetoric. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Trying to talk about how awesome iTunes is. And so I started doing all this research to find out the selling points, and there are none. Nobody likes it. If you Google iTunes versus whatever, nobody likes iTunes. They talk about all this geeky, nerdy audio stuff that I don't understand that apparently makes iTunes suck. It just sucks for everybody. Literally the only reason anybody ever uses iTunes is because they don't know any better, or they have to because they have a freaking iPod. And I'm sorry. iTunes blows.
Okay.
We're done.
Hey, I can get on that train of suckitude. I only install it and use it because my wife has an iPhone and she loves her phone, and I totally I'm down with it. I want her to love her phone that she carries with her every single day, and we only use iTunes to do that. And then I have an account because you need to register podcasts. So you have to register the podcast. You actually have to boot up iTunes. And listen, I don't want them to kick me off for saying this, but I'm just saying, if I have to use iTunes to register a podcast with you, seriously. So yeah, it does. It takes a long time to load. It's not very good. It updates like literally every other day. It's terrible. So, all right. Any last words?
There's got to be a better way to do that for the podcasts.
And iTunes is the place to go for podcasts too, because they're the ones that hold basically the full index of podcasts out there. Like if you want to be on the list of podcasts, most APIs for search go into the iTunes search for podcasts. So you have to be in there to be a decent podcast. Which, by the way, if anybody's listening and has an iPhone or iTunes, we would love your review because the more reviews that we get on iTunes, the more viewership we'll get. That was terrible. And very funny. Yes. Any last words are on the idea of Chrome OS?
I had points that I thought of while other people were talking. The main one being these systems were designed before the internet for the most part, which is not true in any way because the internet goes back to the 80s. But for these systems, also, they're legacy systems, so they get bigger every time. Like, they've tried to scale down. Like, with Vista and with 7, they tried to scale down, but they didn't really do as much of that as they should have. Which is why, like, I kept seeing these articles a couple of weeks ago, and it's like, oh, how the iPhone's going to come out in the 4, and it's going to make your phone worse. And I'm like, yeah, because it's older hardware, and it's going to be a bigger system image. And that's why we need to replace computers every 3-4 years now, because they just get bigger. And the Chrome OS system is tiny because it's designed for low-end hardware. It's like Linux. It's small. It's supposed to run on low-end equipment because it is what you put on a computer usually at the end of life for most users. That's how I got into Linux. That desktop over there would not have Windows 8.1 on it if Linux ran Netflix, because that's what I put on that computer first. But Netflix was a deal breaker.
That's a good point. That's getting stuck in an ecosystem. Now, speaking of getting stuck in an ecosystem, Netflix got stuck in its ecosystem because of Silverlight. Oh, that went well, didn't it? Craig,
yeah.
rebuttal?
Sure. I probably should have kind of said that better. I was thinking more along the lines of they weren't designed for the modern web. Because I can remember the dial-up days, and we've come a long way since the dial-up days. A long way.
I hated dial-up. I hated DSL. DSL can go die in a ditch. Ugh.
I definitely agree.
Because cable didn't exist yet.
No, cable existed for me. Cable just wouldn't come out that far out of the city. I didn't get cable till I was in high school. I missed out on so much growing up because I didn't have cable.
I only got cable 2 years ago. We had ADSL to the house until then. So, yeah, I feel your pain.
John's still on dial-up.
I am. I gotta call Comcast because that is just terrible. It is really bad. It's awful. Anyway, all right. So the idea, and so I gotta jump in that whole internet started. Al Gore created the internet, like literally in like the early '80s. And so I think that Craig's point was that Chrome OS had the ability to start itself up and ramp itself up, using open source technologies that were already pretty well written and scaled down and had already been reviewed out the wazoo, like for instance the Linux kernel. It was modular, so they could rip everything out. That they didn't need, and then they were able to build. And if you look at the code, and I've recently had a chance to do this, which I hadn't before, and it's so terrible that I hadn't. But to watch it build itself and to see some of the tool sets that it's using, it blows my mind. I'm like, I have seen this stuff for the past 15 years, or more. Actually, it's more than that. So like to be able to see this and Chrome OS being built using these technologies, and then to say to itself, not just for low end hardware, and I agree that it's definitely, it rides on lower end hardware. But it's also the newest technology in low end hardware. We could also say it like that. But you can still put it in a Pixel, and it runs blazingly fast, and you're still building apps using the technologies of the web, which are future forward, thinking of what run, code once, run everywhere, because everybody has a browser. Mozilla has another open source browser. IE is, honestly, in the context of the show, blows. And then you have Opera, which is really just using Chrome. So like the browsers are going to be everywhere. They're in everything. And Chrome OS was built for that purpose. They were built for the web. Now the web matured, and I think to Craig's point, these large, library-intensive apps had been written for them for years. Operating systems like Windows, they're great with what they do, and they've had to play catch-up with the security, where Chrome OS was starting to be designed in 2007, 2008, and it was like, no, that's what we do. We are web-specific. We're web-centric. We need everything to be built from the ground up, and with the speed and all that specific, right? So I think that would be kind of my rebuttal. IE blows is my my final.
The U.S. government tells you not to use Internet Explorer. That should be the end of the discussion right there.
And I feel bad. Like we talked about this. I said this earlier. There are incredibly competent, smart people working at Microsoft, and they're trying their best to build a good browser. They really are, and they're trying to put feature-rich things for users to use, and they're trying to But I think that they're caught behind a bad name at this point, because IE literally has been with the ActiveX controls and all the fact that literally they had so many open doors and it just has a bad track record at this point. And even to this day, they're still backpedaling on some things because they're trying to make future forward adjustments, and they're making the wrong call. I think that's part of their problem as well. But they have just as many passionate people working on that as probably Chrome does. And I as a developer, I've got to give these people some props, because I know what it's like to build something where not me specifically, but I know someone that worked on a project for literally like 16 months. It was enormous. And then no one used it. So, and that's just tragic, right? I mean, it's your baby. You lived with it night and day and night, and then no one uses it. So to rail against all this stuff, whether it be iTunes or Windows 8 or IE, there are people working on it too. Chromium has the benefit of also working with the community on this stuff. So that's another very future forward thinking, innovative, from the ground up, amazing. All right, so we'll end that discussion. It was an excellent discussion, and I got my noises back, so I'm happy. All right, so let's get into real quick. We're gonna get into the login section. And the login section is applications, extensions for Chrome, Chromecast, anything that we can lay our hands on as usual. I do want to start with the Minilock, because I think this is super fascinating. And I'm going to bring it up on the screen so that we can see it. While Craig, I'm going to throw it to you, because Craig, you and James have actually been able to use this awesome app.
That is correct. The app's name is Minilock. John will have a link to the app download in the show notes. It is free, and it's branded as file encryption software that does more with less. All you need to know about this app is that if you're into the idea of encryption, this app makes it easier. Basically, it was designed for transmitting documents like tax returns to your accountant, in a way that no one else would be able to read the documents while they were traveling to your accountant. It uses the public key, private key system, which for those of you familiar with encryption, you know exactly what that means. For those of you that aren't, you don't really need to worry about it. The app makes it that easy. And that's actually one of the things that I really love about the app. It's so easy to use. You sign up, you input your email address, and you input a passphrase. It doesn't need to be longer than 30 characters. James struggled with that a little bit. But once you're in, it gives you a public ID, just a little 44-character number that you can pass along to anybody else. And you drag and drop the file in, and it spits out an encrypted version. You send the file and that special key to a friend, like James. He pulls up the file, he decrypts it, it magically works. That's basically it. Once you get into the app, you'll notice that, for example, if I wanted to encrypt a file specifically for James, I actually get his public key, I input that during the encryption process, and that ensures that only James will be able to open that file. And you can specify 5 or 6 people, so if you're distributing it to, I don't know, colleagues at work across your team, it works very, very well. And most importantly, it's built as a Chrome app. So it runs on Windows, Mac, Linux, and Chrome OS right out of the box. I love this thing. I've been using it consistently. I've used it with James and a couple other people. It works really, really well. And honestly, the interface is just surprisingly easy to use for encryption software, which has historically been horrible when it comes to the user interface and user experience. I'm excited. I really am. This is a solid app worth checking out.
Now, I would say, you know what, Craig, and James, I want to talk to you in a second because I want you to kind of give a little review too, because I think it's really cool. I think the scary thing about encryption to me is the fact that you can lose the file, because it's almost like throwing it into a box that you've put a weird, like, push this dial 7 times, lift this thing 4 times, and tap the side twice, and you're going to get it open. But if you don't know that, and you just close the box and it locks, you're like, oh no, I want that file back. That's kind of why I think some of that stuff's kind of scary. But James, what was your experience with Minilock?
Overall, it was a good experience. The passphrase is a little bit annoying with how long it has to be. I guess this is one of those cases where I would say it's probably important to have a stupid password. There's no reason that my, GoDaddy login password needs to have 4 characters, a number, a capital letter, hieroglyphics, and whatnot. But because who wants to get into my GoDaddy account? But this is important because you're sending Craig and I just tested it out. We sent MP4s, not a big deal. But people are going to use this to send very sensitive information. So my only complaint is that it would be nice if they would tell me how long the password has to be, because they don't. So you just keep typing something in and hoping it's long enough, and if it's not, you just keep trying. Or you can use one of their really strange preset passwords, randomly generated passwords that they can give you. That's only a mild annoyance. Once you get past that, the program is pretty easy to use. My only complaint was that after you select the file that you want to decrypt, once someone has sent the encrypted file to you and you need to decrypt it, it's not really obvious what you're supposed to do after that. You have to click a very tiny link to download the file then after it's been decrypted, and you can't choose where that goes. At least I haven't found a way to. It just put it in my downloads folder, so I had to go find it and move it. I'm also not sure if you can decrypt multiple files. It wouldn't let me select multiple files to try to decrypt, so I had to decrypt all the files he sent me one at a time. But that could have just been user error because I really didn't investigate it that far. I just tried to select multiple files, it wouldn't let me, and I just moved on. But those are minor complaints. Overall, it was very easy to use. If you don't understand public keys and private keys and encryption, it's okay. I worked in the SSL department for a year at GoDaddy. I still don't understand encryption and how it works. Craig is right. The app is very easy to use, and you don't need to know how it all works. All you need to know is that when you send the file, the only person that's ever going to be able to open and read that file is going to be the person whose public key you used when you decrypted or when you encrypted the file. So that's really all you need to know. If you want to send a file to somebody and make sure that person is the only person who can see the file, this is a great app, easy, free, and it's a great app for that purpose.
Now I've got actually and I'm not sure if you're into the whole encryption thing. If you're a Snowden file or not, but when it comes to encryption, recently there's been some breaches with some of the cloud storage sites, things like that, and one of them, a big one that has a box on it, they came out and said, when it comes to the protection of your data, well, you should just encrypt it in the cloud, because we have it in an open form. I mean, what do you want? It's your job to secure it. I believe that's what they said, roughly. I can't quote them. Maybe I'll find that. Maybe I won't. But we don't deal with facts on the show. Ara, have you dealt with encryption at all?
Not very much. I do deal with RAR files and the like with a fair regularity, but I would encrypt my Android phone, except for the fact that I love my pattern lock, and I have to give that up if I encrypt, because you have to have either a password or a PIN in order to do that on Android right now. So, hoping with L that it just encrypts it for you no matter what your code is, and it will support it.
That's a good point. I think it's really cool having this ability, especially like Craig said, on any Chrome device, even Windows.
Yeah.
I like it.
My Windows PC is too old, and my Windows 8 PC is too old to have the encryption technology. It's not supported, which made me kind of sad, but I got my copy of Windows 8 for $20, and it's a decade-old computer that was less than $500 new, so it served me well.
Exactly. So next up in the login was something that I thought this was kind of cool. So we talked about Chromecast earlier, and I haven't seen it yet. I gotta get it hooked up because this is cool. I'm not even a big Twitter fan. I'm not tweeting much.
Is this Big Tweets? Yeah.
Big Tweets. Exactly. Now Joy over OMG Chrome. Again, I'm not big into tweets. Practical Chrome automatically tweets saying, "Hey, a new show's out," and that's pretty much it. And I have my own account, but this is super cool. Big tweets. Big tweets. Have you seen Big Tweets?
Yeah, I've used it. My interest in it was primarily for work because at the TV station that I work in the newsroom, we just got these 3 big screen TVs that are on the wall, and right now one of them has our live feed, which we don't really need to see in 40 inches because there's another TV that's smaller that will show that for us. And then we have a live CNN feed and a live ABC feed. And multiple people in the newsroom were like, we'd love to take that third screen and put Twitter or Facebook on it so we could monitor it. And I was like, we can do this. Chromecast. Mine was $25, and you just have this app, and you load it, and you run it, and it just will automatically cycle for you. Yeah, no, the only real people that I have managed to sell on a Chromecast outside family and friends is at work. I brought my Chromecast up for the World Cup, and I was loved for that day because we could watch the game on a big screen. It was half a minute behind the cable feed, but the cable was yay big, and the big screen was yay big. So
there you go, exactly. Now,
yay big.
Yay big.
Yeah.
Craig, are you into the tweets, Craig?
I am, but it's mostly read-only. I use it as a news source.
That's it for me.
Exactly, you'd be like a little lurker. I'm down. Get it done. James, does Twitter blow?
Twitter does blow. Twitter finally deleted my account. I started one years ago, and I tweeted, "Twitter is stupid," and I never tweeted again. But I logged in every once in a while just to see what it looked like, and some random people would follow me. I don't know why they would follow me. I don't know how they found me. I don't know how you find people on Twitter, but they were largely disappointed if they were following me expecting anything. And then one day I tried to log in just to see what was up, and I didn't have an account anymore, so they must be some sort of inactivity. I've never found a reason to use it. Facebook has pretty much devolved into Twitter anyways, so I don't really see the point in having both.
That's a good point.
Oh yeah, that was one of the points that I had earlier. Y'all brought up how nobody likes iTunes. They either use it because they have to, or they use it because they don't know any better. That's about the view of Facebook. Because you either use it because you have to, because that's what everybody else is on, and everybody else is on there because everybody else is on there. or you use it because you don't know any better.
Agreed. Exactly. All right, cool. So that's a cool little app. I thought that was cool. Whether or not you're into the tweets, the twittering. So next up is actually I'm going to throw this to Craig again, because he put the link in there, about the Google usability study. Craig, why don't you fire away, sir? I know you've got it right on the tip of your brain there.
Sure. This is pretty standard. They happen every now and then. Basically, it's just Google reaching out saying, hey, if you'd be interested in helping us test something new, here's a link. Maybe put in your information. Maybe we'll contact you. Maybe we won't. No real details are ever present for these things. They don't want you to know what you're getting yourself into. That's part of the fun.
Please be material design. Please be material design. Please be material design.
It's not impossible, because it is usability testing. So if they're testing a new design, it's possible.
That's why I'm hoping.
But they do give you money and gift cards and stuff for doing it. So it's not just volunteer-based. If you're interested in maybe spending about an hour of your time with Google, either on their campuses or just via Hangouts or over the phone, hit up the link in the show notes and fill it out. I've never been contacted for these in the past, but I know they kind of selectively pick people based on which demographics they want to roll this out to, or which demographics it focuses to or kind of pertains to. So it's worth signing up. I'll say that.
There you go. I know I'm hitting it. I'm sure that James and Craig are. I'm sure that you're going to get on board. Come on. And you're right about material design. Who's not excited about material design? Nobody. Everybody's excited about material design. I love material design. We talked about that's what I/O was about. It was awesome. Well,
that's not what it was all about, but
no, that's what it was all about. None of this 360 business. I don't want to hear about watches. I don't want to hear about watches.
No. It was about that car that they cut into pieces and put on the set.
See, the car thing. That was just a draw. I don't know. Because can you... Look, I know, okay, this could be a big debate. But the car to me was... It was the bait. It was the bait of a bait and switch. But the switch was material design, so, like, hello, much cooler and also more in your face than a car will be.
Well, the car thing is going to take years in order for it to roll out, unless they're expecting a bunch of us nerds once we get L to put in new head units, which I'm not particularly averse to because I already have a third-party head unit in my decade-old Odyssey. So
that's what I'm saying. James?
Yeah.
James, the car, does it blow?
I'm going to level with you, John.
Uh-oh.
It blows. No, I didn't watch the I/O. All right, I'm the worst phone podcaster ever. I had a job at the time. It was really getting in the way of interesting, fun things.
See, I made sure I had off for I/O. That was a priority.
Yeah, it should have been, but it wasn't. So I watched like the first 10 minutes of it, and then I had to go to work, and so I literally have no idea what you're talking about.
They had a car on set to demo Android Auto. But yeah, the car bit was kind of a fail, quite honestly. It just felt so awkward with that compared to like the Android TV and the rest of it. Except for the guy who was debugging an app on stage. I literally almost fell asleep at that point. Mainly because I am not a programmer by any means.
Craig, the car.
It's neat, but if I have to buy a new car to use it, I probably am not interested.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. All right. Well, that was awesome. I love my sounds. See, if you donate to Bitcoin, right, or you use the referral link, I can get a proper mixer that I can make these cool sounds happen, and I can do so many things. So if you have some Bitcoin out there and they're just sitting there, they're not doing anything. They're just ones and zeros sitting in some box somewhere. Spread the love. Anyway, okay, so first of all, Ara, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Practical Chrome. We really appreciate it. You just coming out and joining us for this episode about the idea of Chrome. I'd like for you to rejoin us at some point when you get a Chromebook, or maybe as you're approaching when you want to buy one. We can really go over, as a group, the different models that are available, something like that. I think would be really great. But I really thank you for coming on. Can you tell everybody where everybody can find Ara? What's Ara doing on the webs that people can find her and read about what you're doing?
Well, if you want to follow me primarily on Google+, mainly because Google+ is Google, so if you Google me, you will find me. But I just started on Android Central. I got my third article up today. It was about Google+ again, because I did one over the weekend, which was my higher story and why you should be using Google+. And that one got a lot of feedback, which I was kind of surprised about. But yeah, Android Central and Google+. I think I'm plus.google.com/plus Ara Wagoner. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool beans. Check that out. Mr. Welbus, where can people find you on the webs, on the interwebs?
Well, if you Google me, you may find me. You may also find the other James Welbus, who was recently arrested for assault, or possibly the dead James Welbus. If you find one who is alive and not in jail, there's a good chance that's me. You can also find me at, you won't necessarily find me there, but if you're curious what is taking up most of my time, you can check out Chromebook.reviews. Get the reviews on almost all the Chromebook models that are out there. Also, I'm on Google Plus sometimes.
There you go. That'll work. Mr. Tomlinson, what happens when people Google you?
Scary, scary things, John. I would avoid it. If they are desperate.
If you Bing him.
Oh, yeah. My Bing history is something else. Anyway, as I was saying, if you would like to stalk me, you can find me on Google+. I'm sure it's the first result on Bing. Maybe. Go find out. I'm primarily on Google+. I use my real name, Craig Tumbleson, and you can also find me at chromeup.com.
Hey, there you go. Two awesome sites out there. Chromeup.com, which is awesome. And then you got the Chromebook.reviews. Awesome. Two great sites. Now, I do want to show you something. Speaking of Googling, right? So Chrome, Practical Chrome, this show. That's right. This show over here is all about the Chrome, and we've been live now on the interwebs for, gosh, how long has it been? It's been 7 months, going strong now. You've seen me with and without beard, James with and without hat, Craig with and without excellent microphone, great guests like Ara been on, and
I should have worn my hat, actually. It's rare for people to see me without one, so.
Next time, hat that. That'll work. Next time, I might not do beard. I don't know. I'm not 100% yet. But what I wanted to do real quick, because we're talking about the searching on the Googles. So we've been around now for a little bit of time, and what I've done is I've opened. Oh, don't do that. I've opened an incognito tab, and I'm going to put it up on the screen. If you Google Chrome Podcast. And this is a shout out to the other one that's out there called the Giga Chrome Show. But me being in a incognito tab means that my search results are not going to come up first, which of course honestly Practical Chrome is going to come up immediately, all 7,000 million searches. But in an incognito window, and you go to google.com and you type in Chrome Podcast, the first one to pop up is Practical Chrome. And this is, of course, again, the next one, of course, is the Chrome Show, the Gig Chrome Show, which is an awesome podcast, another one that you can check out if you like the show. But I just wanted to mention that. I thought that was literally like the coolest thing that had happened to me all week. Well, not the coolest thing, I guess. I am in awesome Reston, Virginia, so that's pretty neat, too. But the fact that that's so cool. So anyway, the show dedicated to everything Chrome and out there in podcast form, videocast form, every Tuesday at 10:10. That's where you can find me on the web. Is you can type in Chrome Podcasts in Google, and it comes right up. I'm also on the G Pluses under John Oliphant. And again, I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. I want to thank our sponsors, effective-group.com, and of course Coinbase, and of course Ara. Again, thank you so much for joining us. You were great. And Craig and James, as usual, the applesauce to my pork chops. You guys are great. That was good. That was really good. So you guys everyone have a good rest of the week, and we will see you next week.
Ciao.
Bye.